Abridged recording of what I deem to be the first section of the formidable Book 9 of Paradise Lost, what I call the surprising challenge of tempting Eve. No more of talk where God or angel guest with man, as with his friend familiar, used to sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast, permitting him the while venial discourse unblamed. I now must change those notes to tragic. Foul distrust and breach, disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience. On the part of heaven, now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke, and judgment given, that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and her shadow death, and misery, death's harbinger. Sad task. Yet, argument not less, but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe pursued, thrice fugitive about Troy wall, or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire, or Juno's, that so long perplexed the Greek and Cytherea's son. If answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness, who deigns her nightly visitation unimplored, and dictates to me slumbering, or inspires easy my unpremeditated verse. Since first this subject for heroic song pleased me, long choosing and beginning late, not sedulous by nature to indict wars, hitherto the only argument heroic deemed, chief mastery to dissect with long and tedious havoc, fabled knights in battles feigned, the better fortitude of patience, and heroic martyrdom unsung. Or to describe races and games, or tilting furniture, emblazoned shields, impress quaint, caparisons and steeds, bases and tinsel trappings, gorgeous knights as at joust and tournament, then martial feast, served up in hall with sewers and cenacles, the skill of artifice or office mean, not that which justly gives heroic name to person or to poem. Me, of these, nor skilled nor studious, higher argument remains sufficient of itself to raise that name, unless an age too late or cold climate or years damp my intended wing depressed, and much they may, if all be mine, not hers who brings it nightly to my ear. The sun was sunk, and after him the star of Hesperus, whose office is to bring twilight upon the earth, short arbiter twixt day and night. And now, from end to end, night's hemisphere had veiled the horizon round, when Satan, who late fled before the threats of Gabriel out of Eden, now, improved in meditated fraud and malice bent on man's destruction, maugre what might hap of heavier on himself, fearless, returned. By night he fled, and at midnight returned from compassing the earth, cautious of day, since Uriel, regent of the sun, descried his entrance and forewarned the cherubim that kept their watch. Thence, full of anguish, driven the space of 7 continued nights, he rode with darkness, thrice the equinoctial line he circled, 4 times crossed the car of night from pole to pole, traversing each color. On the 8th, returned, and on the coast averse from entrance or cherubic watch by stealth, found unsuspected way. There was a place. Now not, though sin, not time, first wrought the change, where Tigris at the foot of paradise into a gulf shot underground, till part rose up a fountain by the tree of life, in with the river sunk, and with it rose Satan, involved in rising mist, then sought where to lie hid. Sea he had searched, and land from Eden over Pontus and the pool Maeotis up beyond the river Ob, downward as far as Antarctic, and in length west from Orontes to the ocean barred at Darien, thence to the land where flows Ganges and Indus. Thus the orb he roamed with narrow search, and with inspection deep considered every creature, which of all most opportune might serve his wiles, and found the serpent subtlest beast of all the field. Him, after long debate irresolute of thoughts, resolved his final sentence, chose fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter, and his dark suggestions hide from sharpest sight. For in the wily snake, whatever slights none would suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety, proceeding which in other beasts observed, doubt might beget of diabolic power, active within, beyond the sense of brute. Thus he resolved, but first from inward grief his bursting passion into plaints thus poured. O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred more justly, seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts reforming what was old. For what god after better, worse would build? Terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps, light above light for thee alone, as seems in thee, concentring all their precious beams of sacred influence. As God in heaven is center, yet extends to all, so thou, centering, receivest from all those orbs. In thee, not in themselves, all their known virtue appears, productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth of creatures animate with gradual life of growth, sense, reason, all summed up in man. With what delight could I have walked thee round, if I could joy in aught sweet interchange of hill and valley, rivers, woods, and plains. Now land, now sea and shores with forest crowned, rocks, dens, and caves, but I in none of these find place of refuge. And the more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel torment within me, as from the hateful siege of contraries. All good to me becomes bane, and in heaven much worse would be my state. But neither here seek I, no, nor in heaven to dwell, unless by mastering heaven supreme, nor hope to be myself less miserable by what I seek, but others to make such as I, though thereby worse to me, redound. For only in destroying I find ease to my relentless thoughts, and him destroyed, or one to what may work his utter loss, for whom all this was made, all this will soon follow, as to him linked in weal or woe. In woe, then, that destruction wide may range. To me shall be the glory sole among the infernal powers in one day to have marred what he, Almighty, styled 6 days and nights continued making. And who knows how long before had been contriving, though perhaps not longer, since I in one night freed from servitude and glorious well nigh half the angelic name, and thither left the throng of his adorers. He, to be avenged, and to repair his numbers thus impaired, whether such virtue spent of old now failed more angels to create, if they at least are his created, or to spite us more, determined to advance into our room a creature formed of earth, and him endow, exalted from so base original, with heavenly spoils, our spoils. What he decreed he effected, man he made, and for him built magnificent this world and earth his seat, him Lord pronounced, and indignity, subjected to his service angel wings and flaming ministers to watch and tend their earthly charge. Of these the vigilance I dread, and to elude, thus wrapped in mist of midnight vapor, glide obscure, and pray in every bush and brake, where hap may find the serpent sleeping, in whose mazy folds to hide me, and the dark intent I bring. Oh, foul descent, that I, who before contended with gods to sit the highest, am now constrained into a beast, and mixed with bestial slime? This essence to incarnate and imbrute, that to the height of deity aspired? But what will not ambition and revenge descend to? Who aspires must down as low as high he soared, obnoxious first or last to basest things. Revenge at first, though sweet, bitter ere long, back on itself recoils. Let it. I reck not, so it light well aimed, since higher I fall short, on him who next provokes my envy, this new favorite of heaven, this man of clay, son of despite whom us the more to spite his maker raised from dust. Spite then with spite is best repaid. So saying, through each thicket, dank or dry, like a black mist low creeping, he held on his midnight search where soonest he might find the serpent. Him, fast sleeping soon, he found in labyrinth of many a round, self-rolled, his head the mist well stored with subtle wiles, not yet in horrid shade or dismal den, nor nocent yet, but on the grassy herb, fearless, unfeared, he slept. In at his mouth the devil entered, in his brutal sense in heart or head possessing, soon inspired with act intelligential, but his sleep disturbed not, waiting close the approach of morn. Now, when as sacred light began to dawn in Eden on the humid flowers that breathe their morning incense, when all things that breathe from earth's great altar send up silent praise to the Creator, and his nostrils fill with grateful smell, forth came the human pair, and joined their vocal worship to the choir of creatures' wanting voice. That done, partake the season prime for sweetest scents and airs. Then commune how that day they best may ply their growing work. For much their work outgrew the hand's dispatch of two, gardening so wide, and Eve first to her husband thus began. Adam, well may we labor still to dress this garden, still to tend plant, herb, and flower, our pleasant task enjoined, but till more hands aid us, the work under our labor grows luxurious by restraint. What we may by day lop overgrown, or prune, or prop, or bind one night or two, with wanton growth derides, tending to wild. Thou, therefore, now advise, or hear what to my mind first thoughts present. Let us divide our labors. Thou where choice leads thee, or where most needs, whether to wind the woodbine round this arbor, or direct the clasping ivy where to climb, while in yonder spring of roses intermixed with myrtle find what to redress till noon. For while so near each other thus, all day our task we choose, what wonder if so near looks intervene and smiles or object new, casual discourse draw, on which intermits our day's work, brought to little, though begun early, in the hour of supper come unearned. To whom mild answer Adam thus returned: Soul, Eve, associate soul, to me, beyond compare, above all living creatures dear, well hast thou motioned, well thy thoughts employed how we might best fulfill the work which here God hath assigned us, nor of me shalt pass unpraised, for nothing lovelier can be found in woman than to study household good and to good works in her husband to promote. Yet not so strictly has our Lord imposed labor as to debar us when we need refreshment, whether food or talk between, food of the mind, or this sweet intercourse of looks and smiles. For smiles from reason flow to brute denied, and are of love the food, love not the lowest end of human life. For not to irksome toil, but to delight he made us, and delight to reason joined. These paths and bowers, doubt not but our joint hands will keep from wilderness with ease as wide as we need walk, till younger hands before long assist us. But if much converse perhaps thee satiate, to short absence I could yield, for solitude sometimes is best society, and short retirement urges sweet return. But other doubt possesses me lest harm befall thee severed from me, for thou knowest what has been warned us, what malicious foe, envying our happiness and of his own despairing, seeks to work us woe and shame by sly assault, and somewhere nigh at hand watches no doubt with greedy hope to find his wish and best advantage, us asunder, hopeless to circumvent us joined, where each to other speedy aid might lend it need, whether his first design be to withdraw our fealty from God, or to disturb conjugal love, then which perhaps no bliss enjoyed by us excites his envy more. Or this, or worse, leave not the faithful side that gave thee being, still shades thee and protects. The wife, where danger or dishonor lurks, safest and seemliest by her husband stays, who guards her, or with her the worst endures. To whom the virgin majesty of Eve, as one who loves and some unkindness meets with sweet austere composure, thus replied: Offspring of heaven and earth, and all earth's lord, that such an enemy we have, who seeks our ruin, both by thee informed I learn, and from the parting angel overheard, as in a shady nook I stood behind, just then returned at shut of evening flowers. But that thou shouldst my firmness therefore doubt to God or thee, because we have a foe, may tempt it, I expect not to hear. His violence thou fearst not, being such as we, not capable of death or pain, can either not receive or can repel. His fraud is then thy fear, which plain infers thy equal fear that my firm faith in love can by his fraud be shaken or seduced. Thoughts which how found they harbor in thy breast, Adam, misthought of her to thee so dear? To whom with healing words Adam replied: Daughter of God and man, immortal Eve, for such thou art, from sin and blame entire, Not diffident of thee do I dissuade thy absence from my sight, but to avoid the attempt itself intended by our foe. For he who tempts, though in vain, at least asperses the tempted with dishonor foul, suppose not incorruptible of faith, not proof against temptation. Thou, thyself with scorn and anger, wouldst resent the offered wrong, though ineffectual found. Misdeem not then if such affront I labor to avert from thee alone, which on us both at once the enemy, though bold, will hardly dare, or daring, first on me the assault shall light. Nor thou his malice and false guile condemn. Subtle he needs must be, who could seduce angels. Nor think superfluous others aid. I, from the influence of thy looks, receive access in every virtue. In thy sight, more wise, more watchful, stronger if we need were of outward strength, while shame, thou looking on, shame to be overcome or overreached, would utmost vigor raise, and raised unite. Why shouldst not thou, like sense within thee, feel when I am present, and thy trial choose with me, best witness of thy virtue tried? So spake domestic Adam in his care and matrimonial love. But Eve, who thought less attributed to her faith sincere, thus her reply with accents sweet renewed. If this be our condition thus, to dwell in narrow circuit, straitened by a foe subtle or violent, we not endued single with like defense wherever met, how are we happy, still in fear of harm? But harm precedes not sin. Only our foe, tempting, affronts us with his foul esteem of our integrity. His foul esteem sticks no dishonor on our front, but turns foul on himself. Then wherefore shunned or feared by us, who rather double honor gain from his surmise prove false, find peace within, favor from heaven, our witness from the event? And what is faith, love, virtue unassayed, alone, without exterior help sustained? Let us not then suspect our happy state, left so imperfect by the Maker wise as not secure to single or combined. Frail is our happiness, if this be so, and Eden were no Eden, thus exposed. To whom thus Adam fervently replied, O woman, best are all things as the will of God ordained them. His creating hand nothing imperfect or deficient left of all that he created, much less man or anything that might his happy state secure from outward force. Within himself the danger lies, yet lies within his power. Against his will he can receive no harm. But God left free the will, for what obeys reason is free, and reason he made right, but bid her well beware and still erect, lest by some fair appearing good surprised she dictate false and misinform the will to do what God expressly has forbid. Not then mistrust, but tender love enjoins that I should mind thee oft, and mind thou me. Firm we subsist, yet possible to swerve, since reason, not impossibly, may meet some specious object by the foe suborned, and fall into deception unaware, not keeping strictest watch as she was warned. Seek not temptation then, which to avoid were better, and most likely, if for me thou sever not, trial will come unsought. Wouldst thou approve thy constancy? Approve first thy obedience. The other, who can know, not seeing thee attempted, who attest? But if thou think trial unsought may find us both securer than thus warned, thou seem'st go. For thy stay, not free, absents thee more. Go in thy native innocence, rely on what thou hast of virtue, summon all, for God toward thee has done his part. Do thine. So spake the patriarch of mankind. But Eve persisted, yet submiss, though last replied. With thy permission, then, and thus forewarned chiefly by what thy own last reasoning words touched only, that our trial, when least sought, may find us both perhaps far less prepared, the willinger I go, nor much expect a foe so proud will first the weaker seek. So bent, the more shall shame him his repulse. Thus saying, from her husband's hand, her hand soft, she withdrew, and like a wood nymph light, Oread or Dryad, or of Delia's train, betook her to the groves, but Delia's self in gait surpassed, and goddess-like deport, though not as she, with bow and quiver armed, but with such gardening tools as art yet rude, guiltless of fire, had formed, or angels brought. To Pales or Pomona thus adorned, like as she seemed, Pomona when she fled Vertumnus, or to Ceres in her prime, yet virgin of Proserpina from Jove. Her long with ardent look his eye pursued, delighted, but desiring more her stay. Oft he to her his charge of quick return repeated. She to him as oft engaged to be returned by noon, amid the bower, and all things in best order, to invite noontide repast or afternoon repose. O much deceived, much failing, hapless Eve, of thy presumed return, event perverse, thou never from that hour in paradise foundst either sweet repast or sound repose. Such ambush hid among sweet flowers and shades, waited with hellish rancor imminent to intercept thy way or send thee back despoiled of innocence, of faith, of bliss. For now, and since first break of dawn, the fiend, mere serpent in appearance, forth was come, and on his quest where likeliest he might find the only two of mankind, but in them the whole included race, his purposed prey. In bower and field he sought where any tuft of grove or garden plot more pleasant lay, their tendance or plantation for delight. By fountain or by shady rivulet he sought them both, but wished his hap might find Eve separate. He wished, but not with hope of what so seldom chanced, when to his wish beyond his hope Eve separate he spies, veiled in a cloud of fragrance where she stood, half spied, so thick the roses bushing round about her glowed, oft stooping to support each flower of slender stalk, whose head, though gay carnation, purple, azure, or speckled with gold, hung drooping unsustained. Them she upstays gently with myrtle band, mindless the while herself, though fairest unsupported flower, from her best prop so far and storm so nigh. Nearer he drew, and many a walk traversed of stateliest covert, cedar, pine, or palm, then, voluble and bold, now hid, now seen among thick woven arborets and flowers, embroidered on each bank, the hand of Eve, spot more delicious than those gardens feigned, or of revived Adonis, or renowned Alcinous, host of old Laertes' son, or that not mystic where the sapient king held dalliance with his fair Egyptian spouse. Much he the place admired, the person more, as one who long in populous city pent, where houses thick and sewers annoy the air, forth issuing on a summer's morn to breathe among the pleasant villages and farms adjoined. From each thing met conceives delight. The smell of grain, or tedded grass, or kine or dairy, each rural sight, each rural sound, if chance with nymph-like step, fair virgin pass, what pleasing seemed, for her now pleases more, she most, and in her look sums all delight. Such pleasure took the serpent to behold this flowery plat, the sweet recess of Eve, thus early, thus alone, her heavenly form angelic, but more soft and feminine, her graceful innocence, her every air of gesture or least action overawed, his malice, and with rapine sweet bereaved his fierceness of the fierce intent it brought. That space the evil one abstracted stood from his own evil. That space the evil one abstracted stood from his own evil, and for the time remained stupidly good, of enmity disarmed, of guile, of hate, of envy, of revenge. But the hot hell that always in him burns, though in mid-heaven, soon ended his delight, and tortures him now the more he sees of pleasure not for him ordained. Then, soon, fierce hate he recollects, and all his thoughts of mischief, gradulating thus, excites. Thoughts! Whither have ye led me? With what sweet compulsion thus transported to forget what hither brought us? Hate, not love, nor hope of paradise for hell. Hope here to taste of pleasure, but all pleasure to destroy, save what is in destroying. Other joy to me is lost. Then let me not let pass occasion which now smiles. Behold alone the woman, opportune to all attempts, her husband, for I view far round, not nigh, whose higher intellectual more I shun, and strength of courage haughty, and of limb heroic built, though of terrestrial mould, foe not informidable, exempt from wound, I not so much hath hell debased, and pain enfeebled me to what I was in heaven. She, fair, divinely fair, fit love for gods. Not terrible, though terror be in love, and beauty not approached by stronger hate. Hate, stronger under show of love well feigned, the way which to her ruin now I tend. So spake the enemy of mankind, enclosed in serpent, inmate bad, and toward Eve addressed his way not with indented wave prone on the ground, as since, but on his rear, circular base of rising folds that towered fold above fold, a surging maze. His head crested aloft, and carbuncle his eyes, with burnished neck of verdant gold erect amidst his circling spires, that on the grass floated redundant. Pleasing was his shape, and lovely, never since of serpent kind lovelier. Not those that in Illyria changed Hermione and Cadmus, or the god in Epidaurus, nor to which transformed Ammonian Jove, or Capitoline was seen. He with Olympias, this with her who bore Scipio the height of Rome, with tract oblique, at first as one who sought excess, but feared to interrupt, sidelong he works his way, as when a ship by skilful steersmen wrought nigh's river's mouth or foreland, where the wind veers off, as oft so steers and shifts her sail, so varied he, and of his tortuous train, curled many a wanton wreath in sight of Eve to lure her eye. She, busied, heard the sound of rustling leaves, but minded not, as used to such disport before her, through the field from every beast, more duteous at her call than at Circean call the herd disguised. He bolder now, uncalled before her, stood, but as in gaze admiring. Oft he bowed his turret crest and sleek enamelled neck, fawning, and licked the ground whereon she trod. His gentle, dumb expression turned at length the eye of Eve to mark his play. He, glad of her attention, gained with serpent tongue organic or impulse of vocal air his fraudulent temptation thus began. Wonder not, sovereign mistress, if perhaps thou canst, who art sole wonder, much less arm thy looks, the heaven of mildness, with disdain, displeased that I approach thee thus, and gaze insatiate, I thus single, nor have feared thy awful brow, more awful thus retired. Fairest resemblance of thy Maker fair, thee all things living gaze on, all things thine by gift, and thy celestial beauty adore with ravishment beheld, there best beheld, where universally admired. But here in this enclosure wild these beasts among beholders rude and shallow to discern half what is in thee is fair. One man except who sees thee, and what is one? Who shouldst be seen a goddess among gods adored, and served by angels numberless thy daily train. So glows the tempter in his proem tuned, into the heart of Eve his words made way, though at the voice much marvelling. At length, not unamazed, she thus in answer spake. What may this mean? Language of man, pronounced by tongue of brute and human sense expressed. The first, at least, of these I thought denied, to beasts whom God on their creation day created mute to all articulate sound. The latter I demur, for in their looks much reason, and in their actions oft appears the serpent, subtlest beast of all the field I knew, but not with human voice endued. Redouble then this miracle, and say, how camest thou speakable of mute, and how to me so friendly grown above the rest of brutal kind that daily are in sight? Say, for such wonder claims attention due. To whom the guileful tempter thus replied. Empress of this fair world, resplendent Eve, easy to me it is to tell thee all. What thou command'st and right, thou shouldst be obeyed. I was at first as other beasts that graze the trodden herb, of abject thoughts and low, as was my food, nor aught but food discerned or sex, and apprehended nothing high. Till on a day roving the field I chanced a goodly tree, far distant to behold, loaden with fruit of fairest colours mixed, ruddy and gold. I nearer drew to gaze, when from the boughs a savoury odour blown, grateful to appetite, more pleased my sense than smell of sweetest fennel, or the teats of ewe, or goat dropping with milk at even, unsucked of lamb or kid that tend their play. To satisfy the sharp desire I had of tasting those fair apples, I resolved not to defer. Hunger and thirst at once, powerful persuaders, quickened by the scent of that alluring fruit, urged me so keen about the mossy trunk I wound me soon from, for high from ground the branches would require thy utmost reach, or atoms. Round the tree all other beasts that saw with like desire, longing and envying, stood, but could not reach amid the tree now got, where plenty hung tempting so nigh, to pluck and eat my fill. I spared not, for such pleasure till that hour at feed or fountain never had I found. Sated at length ere long I might perceive strange alteration in me, to degree of reason in my inmost inward powers, and speech wanted not long, though to this shape retained. Thenceforth to speculations high or deep I turned my thoughts, and with capacious mind considered all things, visible in heaven or earth or middle, all things fair and good. But all that fair and good in thy divine semblance and in thy beauty's heavenly ray, united I beheld, no fair to thine equivalent or second, which compelled me thus, though importune, perhaps to come and gaze and worship thee, of right declared sovereign of creatures, universal dame. So talked the spirited sly snake, and Eve, yet more amazed, unwary, thus replied, Serpent, thy overpraising leaves in doubt the virtue of that fruit in thee first proved. But say, where grows that tree? From hence how far? For many are the trees of God that grow in paradise, and various, yet unknown to us. In such abundance lies our choice as leaves a greater store of fruit untouched, still hanging incorruptible, till men grow up to their provision and more hands help to disburden nature of her birth. To whom the wily adder, blithe and glad, Empress, the way is ready, and not long. Beyond a row of myrtles on a flat fast by a fountain, one small thicket passed of blowing myrrh and balm. If thou accept my conduct, I can bring thee thither soon. Lead then, said Eve. He, leading swiftly, rolled in tangles and made intricate seem straight, to mischief swift. Hope elevates and joy brightens his crest, as when a wandering fire, compact of unctuous vapor which the night condenses, in the cold environs round, kindled through agitation to a flame, which oft they say some evil spirit attends, hovering and blazing with delusive light, misleads the amazed night wanderer from his way to bogs and mires, and off through pond or pool, there swallowed up and lost from succor far. So glistered the dire snake, and into fraud led Eve, our credulous mother, to the tree of prohibition, root of all our woe, which when she saw thus to her guide, she spake, A serpent, we might have spared our coming hither, fruitless to me, though fruit be here to the excess, the credit of whose virtue rests with thee, wondrous indeed if cause of such effects, but of this tree we may not taste nor touch. God so commanded, and left that command sole daughter of his voice. The rest we live, law to ourselves. Our reason is our law. To whom the tempter guilefully replied, Indeed. Hath God then said that of the fruit of all these garden trees ye shall not eat, yet lords declared of all in earth or air? To whom thus Eve, yet sinless, Of the fruit of each tree in the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of this fair tree amidst the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat thereof, nor shall ye touch it, lest ye die. She scarce had said, though brief, when now more bold the tempter, but with show of zeal and love to man and indignation at his wrong, new part puts on, and as to passion moved, fluctuates, disturbed, yet calmly, and in act raised, as of some great matter to begin, as when of old some orator renowned in Athens or free Rome, where eloquence flourished, since mute, to some great cause addressed, stood in himself collected, while each part, motion, each act, one audience before the tongue, sometimes in height began as no delay of preface brooking through his zeal of right, so standing, moving, or to height upgrown, the tempter all impassioned thus began. Oh, sacred, wise, and wisdom-giving plant, mother of science. Now I feel thy power within me clear, not only to discern things in their causes, but to trace the ways of highest agents deemed however wise. Queen of this universe, do not believe those rigid threats of death. Ye shall not die. How should ye? By the fruit, it gives you life to knowledge. By the threatener, look on me, me who have touched and tasted, yet both live and life more perfect have attained than fate meant me by venturing higher than my lot. Shall that be shut to man, which to the beast is open? Or will God incense his ire for such a petty trespass, and not praise rather your dauntless virtue, whom the pain of death denounce, whatever thing death be, deterred not from achieving what might lead to happier life, knowledge of good and evil, of good, how just, of evil, if what is evil be real, why not known, since easier shunned? God, therefore, cannot hurt you and be just. Not just, not God. Not feared then, nor obeyed. Your fear itself of death removes the fear. Why then was this forbid? Why but to awe? Why but to keep you low and ignorant, his worshippers? He knows that in the day you eat thereof, your eyes, that seem so clear, yet are but dim, shall perfectly be then opened and cleared, and ye shall be as gods, knowing both good and evil, as they know. That ye shall be as God, since I, as man, internal man, is but proportion meet. I of brute human, ye of human gods. So ye shall die, perhaps, by putting off human to put on gods. Death to be wished, though threatened, which no worse than this can bring. And what are gods that man may not become as they, participating godlike food? The gods are first, and that advantage use on our belief that all from them proceeds. I question it. For this fair earth I see, warmed by the sun, producing every kind, them nothing. If they, all things, who enclosed knowledge of good and evil in this tree, that whoso eats thereof forthwith attains wisdom without their leave, and wherein lies the offense that man should thus attain to know? What can your knowledge hurt him, or this tree impart against his will, if all be his? Or is it envy? And can envy dwell in heavenly breasts? These and many more causes import your need of this fair fruit. Goddess humane, reach then, and freely taste. He ended, and his words replete with guile into her heart, too easy entrance one. Fixed on the fruit, she gazed, which to behold might tempt alone, and in her ears the sound yet rung of his persuasive words, impregnated with reason to her seeming, and with truth. Meanwhile the hour of noon drew on, and waked an eager appetite, raised by the smell so savory of that fruit which, with desire inclinable, now grown to touch or taste, solicited her longing eye. Yet first, pausing a while, thus to herself, she mused. Great are thy virtues, doubtless, best of fruits, though kept from man, and worthy to be admired, whose taste, too long forborne at first to say, gave elocution to the mute, and taught the tongue not made for speech to speak thy praise. Thy praise he also, who forbids thy use, conceals not from us, naming thee the tree of knowledge, knowledge both of good and evil, forbids us then to taste, but his forbidding commends thee more, while it infers the good by thee communicated and our want. For good unknown sure is not had, or had and yet unknown is as not had at all. In plain then, what forbids he but to know, forbids us good, forbids us to be wise? Such prohibitions bind not. But if death bind us with afterbands, what profits then our inward freedom? In the day we eat of this fair fruit, our doom is we shall die. How dies the serpent? He hath eaten, and lives, and knows, and speaks, and reasons, and discerns, irrational till then. For us alone was death invented? Or to us denied this intellectual food for beasts reserved? For beasts it seems, yet that one beast which first has tasted envies not, but brings with joy the good befallen him, author unsuspect, friendly to man, far from deceit or guile. What fear I then? Rather, what know to fear under this ignorance of good and evil, of God or death, of law or penalty? Here grows the cure of all. This fruit divine, fair to the eye, inviting to the taste of virtue to make wise. What hinders then to reach and feed at once both body and mind? So saying, her rash hand in evil hour forth reaching to the fruit, she plucked, she eat. Earth felt the wound, and nature from her seat, sighing through all her works, gave signs of woe, that all was lost. Back to the thicket slunk the guilty serpent, and well might for Eve, intent now wholly on her taste, nothing else regarded, such delight till then as seemed in fruit she never tasted, whether true or fancied so, through expectation high of knowledge, nor was Godhead from her thought greedily she engorged without restraint, and knew not eating death. Satiate at length, and heightened as with wine, jocund and boon, thus to herself she pleasingly began.